Nice to have you here. Today there is a video about a bucket lid. It can't get more absurd, but in our scene, it's just the way it is that the products are really tested extensively. And because there is a new bucket lid system here, I want to take a closer look at it with you. In my conclusion about the Dr.Glossy set, I already mentioned that I'm actually very satisfied with the lid, but you haven't really questioned that. There hasn't been a test video for it yet, you just took my word for it. But now I will show you that it is indeed the case. I have brought the whole thing here. Today, it's less about the dirt trap, which is still down inside, but we can still take a look at it down there in peace. The important thing is, when you approach the self-service box and you want to bring your own water because there might not be a sink available on site, this can vary a bit with each self-service box. Then it makes sense to also offer a lid. And GP has done this with Dr.Glossy as well. Once with the lid, to safely transport water from A to B, there are other options as well. You can also fill a canister and then transfer it. All correct. Here we have the finished system, and there are also more lids, and we have already tested quite a bit for you. Can you still remember? I drove my Ram from here at home to the hall, to my old hall, and we filmed the whole thing with a camera in the back. I wanted to do that here with this part as well, but I think we can skip it because I will show you shortly whether it works well or not. And then we can actually save the trip because you can already see if it works or not. Then we had the magic bucket lid, which you could simply place on top. Similar to that, but it only sealed over the outer ring. It was just placed on top. Done. This one has two, let's call them holding tabs, that kind of clamp in a bit, here on each side. Not over there because that's where the handle is. And then we also had these screw lids, which are really very well sealed. Even if it tips over completely on its side, it only drips out very slowly and doesn't pop open, preventing everything from spilling all over the car. Before we test this here, one very important tip. If you are transporting something like this, I would always recommend placing a bucket inside a box, because if you encounter a pothole or need to swerve for any reason, it can help. Of course, these are situations that might only happen once every 5 years or perhaps never. But when it happens and the bucket tips over completely with water or bumps into something or slides back and forth and then tips over, always place it in a large box. There are 64-liter self-service boxes available. I believe they are also around 60 liters. I will also link it for you below. I always put my things in there, especially when I transport water. Now finally, let's get to the lid. You just push the little tabs in on the left and right, and then take the whole thing off. What I must criticize about the lid now, after the usage period, before all the JP followers here criticize me, I feel like there is a bit of a lack of a really nice handle to grip up here, because you have the lid attached on the sides, and now this is the only spot up here where you can somewhat grip it with your fingers. But I don't feel that this is specifically designed for that. I really just need a nice handle to lift the lid off, because of course, you have to loosen it here on the side, and then you push it up anyway, and practically have it in your hand. But I would have liked the cutout or the design at the top to be adjusted a bit so that it can be gripped much better up here, because there is simply a lack of something here. Anyone who says, it's no problem at all, I just take it off like this, lift it up like this, and hold it like this, it works just the same. But I'm used to having a nice handle on top from all the other lids, especially the screw lids. Just a small point would be nice, but this works too. Did you see that? Otherwise, the special feature of the lid is simply that there is a silicone rubber sealing lip integrated inside. I need to take a look from below to see how it is. I'll explain it to you in detail right away. That's the beauty of it. You can look in from the bottom. It fits snugly inside, so this rubber ring presses against the inside and practically hooks into the edge here, ensuring that everything is sealed. Another important point when transporting water is to make sure not to fill the water all the way to the top. Leave about this much space. There is now so much water in here that it is more than enough. So there are no fixed markings or anything like that. There is also no scale division on it. You will have to draw that yourself. But otherwise, it fills up to about 1 centimeter below this area. And that is completely sufficient. If you fill it up to here and then it sloshes back and forth, it is logical that the water will come out. But you don't need to fill it just down to here for safety. You can actually fill it up to here. If you take this edge as a reference, just make it 4 centimeters below and that should work. So let's hook this in and insert the 2 tabs. Also make sure that it slides down nicely and straight so that the seal can fit properly. And then you press this down firmly. It clicks into place, and yes, over there. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it is definitely secure. So, and then you see here, everything is really completely secure. Yes, and we don't need to take a ride with it. I'm just going to simulate that now. So, if you're traveling with the vehicle, the bucket will move back and forth like this, or sway a little bit, or lean into the curve. And you can already see that there is nothing here. And that's why we can also skip the ride, because there is no more movement than this. So if your car is already swaying and wobbling back and forth like that, then you really have a problem. then you are already partially on the roof or something with the car, so that's absolutely fine. And you can also see here, the water is nice and calm again after a short time, and it will only have a slight tilt here at most. And this is the only point where you can see that it drips a little. So when the movement in the car becomes too strong, that's why, folks, you also have something in the trunk, you're transporting some water and so on. Don't drive like crazy here and take the curve at 130. With the car, I wouldn't do that. So just work carefully and nothing will happen here. And now we can really exaggerate the whole thing. There are actually two spots that are predisposed to where water comes out. The two things here, where the little noses are really nicely fixed to the edge of the bucket. Because if I tilt it here now, let's pay attention. Water, nothing on it, I'm tilting it now. And you can see here it drips very, very lightly. The seal definitely keeps it well sealed, but not 100%. You can see here that 7 or 8 drops are leaking out. But if your bucket is always tilted in the trunk, then something has definitely gone wrong. Now, let's get to a point that I've noticed. That's why I've been testing car care products since 2016, and also these various systems for you. I'll wipe this away. And I can lay the cloth here. Then it will drip directly onto the cloth. Here on both sides is a bit of the bucket lid weak point. And now I'll show you that here. Do you see it? It moves very, very easily. You can even hear inside how the seal moves away and then comes back. Here, the U-sand is noticeably denser through the nostrils. You can't move that, so the weak point at this point is here. So, if I check everything here again to make sure it's all dry and we tilt it a bit to the side, then you'll see. See, a little more is already dripping out, but it really is an exceptional situation. And that's why I have to say, very clearly the bucket lid is absolutely fine. If you want it to be really tight, you need to use a proper screw lid that can be tightened securely. This will let out significantly less water and can ensure it even better. However, this here is completely sufficient for transporting water, especially if you don't fill it too high. And from that point, I can also confirm to you here what I already mentioned in the set conclusion. The lid also fully serves its purpose. I would have liked a small handle on top, but it's actually not necessary because you can solve it with this technique, and therefore you don't really need to grab on top. But yes, I would have liked it to be a bit easier to handle. Especially when you pick it up from the ground or something, it is quite narrow. From the handle perspective, thumbs up, the lid is perfectly fine, the workmanship is top-notch, and it fits nicely. Once you get used to it, it works well. And with that, you now have my complete feedback on the lid, as one could also make a separate video about it. Until next time, bye everyone.